Welcome back, students. This time we'll be looking at another exam, and we're going to be looking at the 2008 exam number 1, and we're looking at question 9. Now, as I've mentioned before, there are many different ways you can solve these type of questions, but I'm just going through what I can perceive to be one of the simplest ways. Now, when you look at these questions, these tend to scare students because they see a shape and we're just looking at it. We see a plastic brick is made of the shape of a right triangular prism, and it says that the triangular end, that is the end of it, there it is an equilateral triangle. And they've explained to you what that means, just in case you forgot, that their sides are all the same. So there it is, equilateral triangle, and it's got sides of x, and its length of this brick is y. And they've given you the volume. Now be very suspicious. Why would they give you the volume? Well, we'll find in a moment, but they've asked us to find an expression of y in terms of x. And then you go down the question and you see, they've asked you for the total surface area. And then finally, they've asked you for the value of x for which the brick has a minimum surface area. And they actually tell you, you don't have to find this minimum. So they want to find the value for which the brick has a minimum surface area. So you have a look at it. 2, 2, 3, 7 marks, 7 minutes. And as I've mentioned previously, there's always some easy marks to be had in these type of questions if you keep your cool. So let's have a look how we could have done it. So let's have a look at the solution. So what I notice? Well, I notice this is an equilateral triangle. So I've sketched that out. There it is, an equilateral triangle. Now that means that's 60. That angle all there is 60. And if you split it in half, that's 30, 30, and then 60. Now, it's not really drawn out really well, but I think you get the idea. That side there is that side there. There's the height. There's the height. And because it's cut in half, that distance from there to there is x on 2. Now, all we need to do is we want to work out the area of this end. Now, why would we need to work out the area of the end? Well, because you know from your previous exam experience that the volume is equal to the area on the ends times the height or the length. So what we've got here is, if we can work out the area of this multiplied by this distance, we have an expression for the volume. And they've already told us that the volume of the brick is 1,000 centimeters cubed. So they're hinting to us, hey guys, I think you should be able to use the volume for this shape. So let's see how we do it. So we know that the area of that is equal to BH over 2. So base times height over 2. What do we got? What's h? It's h. And we use a little bit of trigonometry here. So h is equal to x on root 3 on 2. So we have to know those angles, sine 60. Now, how did I get that again? Well, remember, that's O, that's h, and that's O. So O over h is equal to h over x is equal to sine 60. Remember, O over h. So you have to remember these little facts as we go through it. So we'll just go back. So there it is. There's my shape. I'm just drawing it out just to make you familiar with it. That's 60. Okay. And remember, that is opposite, and the side of some nuisance coming up, so I'll leave it, is h. So got O and h is equal to sine, and so that's where we've got the sine. H over x equals sine 60. H is equal to x sine 60. Now why do we do that? Sine 60 is root 3 on 2. H is equal to x on 3 root 2. Okay, so we've got h, and we know this, and we've got h in terms of x. So if the area is equal to x times this all over 2, and just a little bit of algebra here, x times there is x squared root 3 over 2 over 2, and it becomes x squared root 3 over 4. Now, that's the area. We know that the volume is 1000. We use this formula, and you might be asking yourself, I'm not familiar with this formula. This is something that you would have learned probably in year 10, but it's a formula that keeps on appearing often in VCA exams, methods exams. So if you just commit it to heart, volume is equal to area times the height, so the difference between the two ends. Now we know what the volume is, it's 1000. We know the area, and this h, don't get confused, it's really this length here because we're looking at the volume. So we put y there and rearrange it, which is exactly what you wanted, because find an expression of y in terms of x, and so we've done it. So that's the expression. Now we go into the second part, and this is says find the total surface area. And not only do they want you to find it, but they want you to show it like this. Now what are we looking at the surface area? What does that mean? Well, that means this area, and this area, and the areas of the ends. Now we know that this is x, y, so there's three sides like that. So we know the area of this one is yx times by 3 because it's three sides. And we really just worked out the area of the ends. So it shouldn't be that difficult now. So there it is. So there's the area of the ends multiplied by 2 because there's two sides, 3xy. Now what have I done here? This is where another step is. Y and x, what have we done here? Just have a look at it. 3xy. Well, we're going back to this. There it is. There's the expression that we used before. Y is equal to 4000 x squared and root 3. So we've put that in there and multiplied by 3x. Now notice the 3x over the x cancels out. It becomes x squared root 3 on 2 plus 3, 4000. Now I'm not multiplying out. I'm just leaving it as x over 3. Now, what have I done here? I'm just looking at this part here, and all I've done is I'm just going to minimize it so you can see it. So I have rationalized the denominator. And the reason I do that is I'm just looking at that. So you've got 3 and you've got 4000 there. Now what would have happened if you didn't do that? Well, you might not be able to show them that expression and therefore not get your full marks. So what I've done is multiply this side by root 3 and multiply this side by root 3. Root 3 times root 3 gives you root 9, and this becomes 3 root 3. And now you can see it that this just becomes root 3. So there's the expression x squared root 3 over 2, just leave it a plus, plus root 3, 4000. That's not the way you write it. You write it as 4000 root 3 over x. And exactly what they wanted you to find it. There it is, 4000 root 3 over x plus 3x squared. Alright, so we've done that. And you would have had to know that if you could not go from here to here, you wouldn't be able to get the full marks. Now we come to the last part, and it's saying find the value for which this is a minimum. What does that mean? Well, it means to take the derivative. And if we take the derivative of this, we then have to set it to 0. And that's what I've taken. I've taken the derivative. It's pretty simple. That's x squared. That becomes 2x root 3 over 2. There it is. 2x root 3 over 2. And this one here, put the x on here. It's x minus 1. So when you multiply, it becomes minus 1 down. And you take away 1 from the power, you get x2. So we get to that step there. You can rewind these videos and look at these solutions yourselves and see if you can derive it. So we've got that, 2 cancels out, and we've got 4 root. And now what have I done now? I've just put it over x squared. And I've multiplied all through x squared here, x squared on this side. I get this, I get x cubed is equal to 4,000. There it is. Now, x is equal to the cube root of 4,000. How do you do that? Well, here's another nifty little idea that I've just done. And notice this point here, I should just show you so you can just have a look at it. So, what do we got here now? Well, we've got this. So when you rewrote it and you got x3 equals 4,000. When you do the x, and this becomes to the cube of 4,000. In other words, my writing is deteriorating. That means 4,000 to the 1/3. If it was square root, it would be 1/2. So that's where I got that expression. And now, what have I done next? Can you see? Well, I'll just make it larger. I've used the index laws. There's a 1, there's a 1, that's 4 to the 3rd, 1,000 to the 3rd. Now, this becomes 4 to a 3rd. I've left it that way. 1,000 is 10 to the 3, times that down, it becomes 4 to the 3rd 10. Now, you didn't need to go there. You could have just written as x is equal to 4,000 to the 3rd and leave it as that. So that was that question there. It looked hard, didn't it, when you initially looked at the question, but you needed to understand a few important facts. First of all, once again, why would they give you the volume? Well, because using that you could write an expression. You had to use a little bit of trigonometry, which we did. You had to remember, just looking at the notes again, you had to remember that formula. There's the trigonometry. You had to get an expression for h. You had to remember the formula for the triangle, base times height over 2, and there it is. If you did not know that formula, that the volume is equal to the cross-sectional area multiplied by the distance between, because it's a regular shape, then you would not have been able to do that. And if you couldn't get that, well, odds is you couldn't go further than that. So I hope that explains it. Look forward to our next lesson together.